Hello, my name is Connor Quinlan, and in this review I'm going to be doing a comparison between the Nikon d7000, which I have right here, and the older Nikon d90 camera. Now, what I want to kind of do in this review is there's a lot of people who out there who, since the d7000 has come out, the d90 is going to go down in price. So people usually come to me and ask, well, should I just get the d90 since it's lower price? Well, the answer to that is what I want to kind of talk about in this review. And I'm going to talk about the improvements and that the d7000 has over the d90. And then I'm going to give my opinions as to what you should do when it comes to buying these two cameras. Now, just to start it off, the d7000 is a massive improvement to the Nikon d90. Every aspect of the camera has been changed and modified almost. Even the body itself is different. You can see here there's a lot of added buttons, including here the live view button and the record button where you can record your full HD video. I've also got this new slider up here. It's a little bit different, kind of similar to that of the D300 and D300S, a little more useful, adds a few functions there. Other than that, the body is pretty much the same kind of feel, a little bit heavier, and that is actually because of the durable build of this camera. This camera is made with magnesium alloy, like the D300 and the D300S. The older Nikon D90 was made out of plastic, so this guy is much better performer for things like landscape photography, where you have to be outdoors in moisture and dust. It keeps it out of the camera just as efficiently as the more advanced cameras do, which is a great improvement. It's just amazing that Nikon has finally decided to make their amateur body much more durable. It's also got a better shutter cycle. It can shoot 150,000 shutter cycle instead of just 100,000 of the Nikon D90. Of course, the image quality of this camera has improved greatly, and I'm not talking about megapixels here. It does have 16.2 megapixels, which is a decent amount more than the D90, but the ISO is greatly improved with this camera. Quite a bit better. Better than the D300 and easily just as good or better than the Nikon D300S. To see samples of the high ISO images taken with this camera, you can check out my Nikon D7000 review, or go to the link in my description to check out the sample images I took with this camera. Another great improvement of this camera that the D90 doesn't have is the amazing speed. That is probably my favorite improvement of all of this camera. Simply because the D90 was a decently fast camera, but compared to like the D300, D300S, it just didn't do nearly as well. Well, finally Nikon has decided to boost up the speed of this camera, not only with frames per second, but also with its autofocus. It has a 39-point autofocus system that's very fast and very accurate, might even be faster than the Nikon D300S's autofocus system, although that one does have 51-point autofocus system, but it's still amazingly fast, great in low light situations too, good for sports photography and fast wildlife and stuff like that. It also has improved its shutter speed, or frame per second rate. It can shoot 6 frames per second instead of 4, which was the previous. That's the same speed as the D300S without the battery grip. And that's plenty fast enough for quite a few different types of action photography, including sports and wildlife. Not ideal, but it's very quick. So basically what I'm trying to get across is that this camera can basically do everything that you want it to do. It's the ultimate to-do cam for a pretty decent price. Also, the video is greatly improved. It destroys anything that the D90 had. The D90 was originally the first to incorporate video from Nikon. Not very good video. Yes, it was HD, but it wasn't full HD, and it could only do about 5 minutes of video recording, and it just wasn't that great. This is much more improved. Full HD video, 24 frames per second when it's shooting that video, and you can shoot for over 10 minutes of video, which is great. And it also incorporates full autofocus during video, which works decently well. It also has a ton of new features. It's got visual horizon, which used to be the only things found in more advanced digital SLRs, but now it's come down to the amateur line as well. Useful for landscape photography when you want to get that horizon perfectly straight. That way you don't have to straighten it later in an editing software. It's also got a new prism in its viewfinder. Gives it a 100% viewfinder, just as good as the Nikon D300S. Great improvement, very useful, especially in lower light when you need kind of a brighter prism. It also has a dual memory card slot here, which is very cool to have, meaning you can shoot like one memory card RAW, one memory card JPEG, and you can do a couple really cool things with that. And of course you can hold more memory as well without having to worry about switching it. These are all things that are big improvements of the Nikon D7000, and that's probably not all of them. There's probably a couple more that I haven't even mentioned. So really in the end, the Nikon D7000 in my opinion is a greater improvement than the Nikon D90 was for the D80, and that was a very impressive improvement for me. But this is from a totally different world. I would not have thought that they would have improved it this much to directly compete with the Nikon D300S, because it really is a better camera even than that one. So to be completely honest here, and in the end, yes, it is completely worth it to get the Nikon D7000 over the Nikon D90. I don't really care what the price of the D90 is. Even if it is a lower price or a couple $100 lower or whatever, I just go all the way and get the D7000 because the amount of power that it packs, image quality, and everything that it does just is so far superior to anything that the D90 had to offer, and it's totally worth paying a little bit extra to get this camera. There hasn't been a camera like it since. This is really the first amateur camera that can shoot pretty much anything. It's one of the first that is really fast enough to really be considered for sports and wildlife photography, serious sports and wildlife photography at that. So when it comes down to a choice between the Nikon D7000 and the D90, pay a little bit extra money and get a Nikon D7000 digital SLR.